사시 불길 중심 내적참 위락링치인데 임마디 상계 신두 밑에 우와기 조금 남다 신마 주파쇼 이람그 рат나만다라 감미라타야미 상계 주랑 서기 적남라 장주 바르 락미 캡수치 다기 진행 김배 순남기 조화 벤치 상계 주파쇼 상계 주랑 서기 적남라 장주 바르 락미 캡수치 다기 진행 김배 순남기 조화 벤치 상계 주파쇼 상계 주랑 서기 적남라 장주 바르 락미 캡수치 다기 진행 김배 순남기 조화 벤치 상계 주파쇼.
Close your eyes. And start to inhale and exhale through your nose. And we're going to begin with relaxing. I want you to start allowing for your awareness to descend from the head right down to the ground. Settling the body at ease and relaxing completely so that you're fully still. Vigilant in posture, not sleepy, but still. And begin to breathe. Allow your body to breathe. Don't force the breath, let it just be in its most natural state. Noticing if there's been any dysfunctions with your breath. See if you can allow for your respiration to flow naturally. See if you can use your breath to relax your body. Releasing any tension that may be stored up in your shoulders, your neck, the corner of your lips or your mouth. the space in between your brows. Relax those muscles. Behind your shoulder blades that tend to get nice and knotted for those of us that are on the computers all day. Begin to settle your breath, and therefore your body in its most natural state. And then using your breath, see if you can begin to release and settle your mind in its natural state. Releasing all your concerns, any hopes and fears you might have had, carrying around with you all day. Releasing into the stillness and into this very present moment, so that you may feel a moment of clarity even, or at least a clarity of your awareness. And rest here for just a few breaths of just being aware. From that stillness, let's pose a question to ourselves. There's no right or wrong answers here, just questions. What is today, right now, your vision of what would truly make you happy? What would bring you the fulfillment, joy, and satisfaction, the contentment you've wanted all along? What is that happiness that is your heart's desire? Can you see, can you envision your own flourishing? As it comes to mind, your own vision, and in the spirit of loving kindness to yourself, every time you breathe out, arouse the aspiration, may it be so. May I find such well-being, such happiness and fulfillment. Most of us consider the conventional and outer ways of what that may look like, which is necessary, but also consider a more meaningful wisdom approach. So that for the remainder of this meditation, consider using your breath, every out breath, and arousing the aspiration of finding the causes to find such well-being in your life. May I find the causes to find such happiness, the causes of joy. With every out breath, as if breathing life directly into this vision, and then boldly move into the realm of possibility. Imagine here and now, realizing your heart's desire, the fulfillment, the joy, and the happiness you seek to have. When you're ready, you can open your eyes. Was that harder or easier than last week? Or the same? felt that way in the room. How's everyone doing? You're like, I'm here.
Why do you do that meditation?
Why?
Yeah.
Well, first and foremost, it's a build. It's actually called the Four Immeasurables. It's the first step of the Four Immeasurables.
Does it relate to karma?
Everything relates to karma. But it does relate to karma, sure. And we'll build on it. I'm just doing the first of the 4 steps. Yes, yeah, I'm just gonna leave it at that. The first part of it I start with specifically because I've mentioned this past in this class and even previous classes. And I say this to, I think in particular to usually this audience. The 3 Jewels audience that I've noticed, including myself, were very eager. And this may not be you, but it also may be. But there's a lot of eager, excited, enthusiastic, I want more of this type of students, which is fabulous. Like you couldn't want more, right? In terms of an organization, in terms of spiritual practice. That being said, I've also mentioned that it's easy to also burn out. And that if you are truly interested in having realizations of any sort, one of the first things that you need to be able to understand how to do or what to do is to learn to relax. And I think as New Yorkers, that is something we are not trained to do very well. And it's not being lazy. I mean, for some of us, for me, that's a really difficult thing because it's how am I going to be relaxed and not be lazy? Like, I'm not someone who likes to just like lounge around all day and do nothing. I just feel like I'm not applying myself. There's things that I can be doing. And even when I'm meditating, I tend to be very goal-oriented, which I've also found a lot of other students to be that way. There's like these metrics that we have. And, I have students who are like, gee, I can now meditate for like X amount of minutes. And I'm like, I don't really care how long you can meditate for. Like, what are you doing in the world? Is usually my question. And so I've done meditations where I focus just on relaxation for 24 minutes. Students don't like it very much. Usually someone's like, you hear a few people snoring, people just zone out. But it's interesting because when your mind wants to relax, for most people, I've noticed that it just shuts down. Like it won't actively relax. It's like, all right, I'm out, I'm tuning out, and I just pass out. It's crazy. And it's not because you're sleepy, because 5 minutes ago, you were just fine. And if we went to a movies, you'd be just fine. Or if we went out to dinner, you'd be totally fine. But you come in here and suddenly you have permission to now relax, and you don't know how to train your mind to actually relax and be completely aware. And that's why I always say, try doing your meditation in Shavasana or supine pose where you lie down, because it gives you a different experience. And so what I've decided for this course, especially since we're doing karma, the Four Immeasurables is a beautiful meditation. It's one I'm also practicing, so it's nice to do it in tandem with you. But I thought we'll build. Like I would ideally like to build from like a 10-minute meditation and kind of add on to like 15 and see. I usually do my meditations at 24-minute increments. And I can go into why I do that later, but generally I do 24-minute increments, and then I'll take like a 5-6 minute break and then go back on if I'm doing multiple sessions in one day. That's also what I've started to do in like a retreat practice as well, for those of you. And just while we're on the meditation topic, if you're going to do a meditation, try to just stay with one that works for you. If you have one that you've used before you've come into class that you love, stay with it. If you don't like it, see what else is out there. You can do ones that are on the homework. If that doesn't work for you, it didn't work for me, just so you know. Use the ones that we do in class. These classes are recorded, so you can also get them in access online. But to answer your question, I do this meditation because I find that part one, relaxing is so important. People are so uninterested in it, even though they say they want to do it, which is not true at all. And secondly, when it comes to what is your heart's desire, Everyone is interested on it, but I bet you a lot of you were also wondering about other topics. So I find what the most interesting thing about this meditation is that the two things that most New Yorkers want, that talk about all the time when they go out, we are doing it in 12 minutes. And I challenge and question if you can actually stay focused on the things that you talk about and think about and meditate in not the way that we should be meditating about in class and be able to do it. That's why. Okay. Okay. That's my answer. And so when you say it's difficult, it's always interesting to me, right? And even for myself, because, and I mentioned this last class, is that when it comes from, when I'm looking at these questions, like, first of all, do I even want to relax? Like, do I really? And where do I find ways to not do that? And then also when I'm talking or addressing what do I really want in this world, right? It usually goes to like conventional stuff. Like I want and I can envision it. I can like visualize what it looks like, you know? And then it kind of shifts, right? At the very end of having do you remember what I said? It's not just having your heart's desire but having what? The causes. To wish for the causes. To know how to have the things that you want in life, the causes. And that's the key part. And that's where we're going to go into karma today. Yeah? Okay. All right, here we go. Can we say Lele? Jikden. Natsoki. Again, Lele? Jikden. Natsoki. So we have Lele means karma or karmic deeds or action from. So Lele, even though it sounds it's the same word, the first lei means karmic or deeds, and the second lei means action. Okay. Second part, Jikden, means the world. Oh no, sorry, basis to be destroyed. I know, sounds very. We'll talk about what that means, but it's basically saying it's saying the world. It's saying so jik means destroyed and ten means basis, and the basis to be destroyed basically means it doesn't last. Sometimes you'll see it expressed as perishable basis or basis to be destroyed. I've seen perishable basis before. But it's basically saying the world, the suffering world is basically what it's saying. Okay, that's what it's alluding to. Natsok is various. And ki is they come. Just so you know too, when we talk about Jikden, we talk about the world, or sometimes you'll hear it as a planet. In the Tibetan Buddhist philosophy, there are multiple planets, not just one planet. So each planet will have their own hell beings. They'll have different types of ghosts and spirits. There'll be different types of deity realms. So it's not the world or the planet like we think of, like our ball, like the globe. It's not like that. There's multiple planets out there that you don't see at this moment. Okay. So this phrase, this is actually, we're starting with the opening chapter of the opening line of chapter 4. So of which textbook? Yeah, the Abhidharma Kosha. So this is the 4th chapter of the Abhidharma Kosha. And in the 3rd chapter, it ended with speaking about beings and realms. So remember last week we had like each chapter what it meant. So what's happening is that Master Vasubandhu here is picking up and saying, okay, so chapter 3, we talked about beings and realms. Chapter 4 is going to be then where do these beings and realms come from? And Master Vasubandhu here, it's his first statement of karma that he's making. This statement, karmic deeds cause the multitude of worlds. So if some of you, I know it's a long time ago, but in course 4, we had Dharma Kirti debating with a bunch of Hindus about past and future lives. Do you remember that? It was like debating whether or not was there, it wasn't there. Okay. So now we have 100 years later, Master Vasubandhu, guess who he's debating with? The Hindus again. Same group, different person, different time. And he's writing this line because the people in India have a certain type of belief system that he wants to refute, which we're going to go into today. And the belief system that they have is still relevant today. It's the most important text. It's the most important line of the entire text. Last course, when we came out of past to future lives, the goal was really, or I said the goal, but the point of it was to be able to at least give you a sense or maybe a feeling that there might be a past and future lives. And for some of you that came out of it, they're like, yeah, I actually believe that may be true, or that is true. It completely changes the way that you start considering your life. I think that's fair to say for those of you that believe that. The purpose of this course is to come out with the feeling of that your karmic deeds cause your world, meaning that you cause your world, the world that you have in front of you, the world that you experience in front of you is something caused by your deeds, okay? And we're going to go further into that today. But the point is that it's not random. There is no coincidence of what you see in front of you and what's happening in your life. It's all been caused specifically by actions that were created from your past. Okay. All right. So the three beliefs that Master Vasubandhu is fighting, and the three ideas that the Hindus have of what caused the world, have two components, naturally. We have unchanging and changing. They are back. Mi takpa and takpa. So anything that's unchanging means it's the cause of all causes, basically. Nothing came before it. And anything that's changing means it's impermanent. Okay. And what the Hindus believed back then that he's trying to refute in the unchanging category.
Each of the three belief systems have a changing and unchanging.
No,
portion.
within the three beliefs, there are two buckets, or two
Oh, I see.
categories, and then three will fall within
Okay.
those. So there'll be two unchanging and one in changing. Yeah. I just had to break it down for myself, I guess. I don't know, in case it helps you. This is like what I do when I'm prepping for class and I have charts made, and I'm like, I'm just going to create this for you and see if that helps. Okay, so under unchanging, mi takpa, there's, can you say gyu takpa? And gyu takpa, gyu means cause, and takpa means unchanging. And what that means, actually, is the original cause, unchanging cause, like matter forming from the Big Bang. So the idea is, one of the ideas of belief systems that the Hindus have, that still is today, right, that I think we have seen in science, is that the world was created through this kind of Big Bang idea. Okay? Matter caused from a bang. Okay?
How's that unchanging?
Because nothing came before it.
Oh, I see.
It just, that was it. Like, it just, that's what it was, and that's what it is. Yeah. The second one is so'o. Can you say so'o?
So,
And that means main principle or primal energy. It's like the force. It's the primal energy that made things. I mean, there's text, there's like scripture that talks about it, and I'm not going to go into detail, but basically back then they had these ideas that they were like 25 qualities or phenomenons, and one of them was kind of a being, but not really, but like an energy. And the best way that I can explain it to you is the Star Wars analogy of the Force. Like, there is a force, some sort of force that has created the world. Yes.
This is like the Shiva Shakti.
It could be, yeah. It could be. Or like, I can't remember. in other traditions. Not in Buddhist, but in like a whole different tradition. Anyway, it's some sort of like energetic force, okay? Under changing, can you say Wang Chuk? In Wang Chuk, they're saying it's Indra or Ishvara, which is basically a creator being. Okay, there's some sort of deity or god. And back then they believed that there was a creator deity that had a special stick and stirred a pot. And then from stirring the pot, the world then came.
So why would a creator being be changing? Why wouldn't it be the same way like a Big Bang? Like there was nothing before the creator being. That's the original.
We're going to go into that right after, yeah. So he's going to go, Master Vasubandhu is now going to go into like refuting each one of them. Okay, so here's the overview of your chart as you build it out. Unchanging, he's saying that if something was created, if you remember from last course, we had material cause. If you create something, right, like produces like, right, there's a similar quality. So if there is something unchanging that's created, like the Big Bang, for instance, right, and it creates the earth, creates the world, then what he's saying is, then that the creation, the thing it's created should never change either. It should always be the same. And things deteriorate, things evolve. So his argument is saying it couldn't possibly be that. It couldn't be anything that's unchanging because things are evolving. Otherwise, once the world created the wall would always be a wall and it would never deteriorate. Okay? When he talks about the creator being, we talked about creator being last course about as it being changing, because if the creator being is creating something and the world's changing, then the creator being must also be changing too. Do you remember that? Right, okay. So what he's saying then is the world couldn't come from a creator being, because if indeed there was a being that can create the world, then why couldn't he have created the world at one time? Like everything exists at once. Why is there evolution? Why is there some sort of time that moves? Like things evolve. Then why is there like one century that will follow a previous century? And what he's saying is that if it was all created at once, there would be no causality. And the fact that there's a sequence of events that are happening that we're noticing, that it's not possible that there's actually a changing thing. It's a creator being that's doing it. Because there's something that's happening that we're witnessing of some kind of cause and effect. I'm just putting it out there, okay? Okay? And his argument for this then goes into why do you care? Like, why is this important to you? Why should this matter? And what he basically is trying to say is, it's to be able to, there's a Tibetan term, I don't actually know the phonetics of it, but it's pronounced jumpa, not jimpa, but jumpa is what it sounds like, almost like a D, but it's, anyway. And it means mental shadow. And what he's saying is, he's presenting this to you ultimately because he wants you to be free from suffering. That's what these commentaries are meant for. And he's saying that there is a jumpa that we have, there is a mental shadow or a preconceived notion that we have that's a presupposition that is an obscuration in our mind. And the main one that he will speak to directly is about a creator being, saying that if most of us have and believe that there is someone out there that has created all things. And so as long as you believe that that is indeed true, even 1%, that you are actually not going to be able to fully embrace this concept that your karmic deeds is what creates the world, rather than someone else that created it for you. Okay? And that is one of the biggest things. It's like, how do you overcome that, right? And that's where we're starting. Okay, we're going to keep moving on. I know it's a lot, so just stick with me and then we can...
Does he say anything about primal energy?
He doesn't. He just talks about unchanging as a whole. Because he's saying that if unchanged, like with primal energy would be the same. Like if there's some sort of force that's out there, then the world would also be in some sort of similar expression of it. And that's not the case. So back to the original first sentence in the textbook. It's Lele Jiten Natsoki, which is karmic deeds cause a multitude of worlds. And kind of typical of Tibetan statements, there's two aspects to this. There's always the positive and the negative. Where the world didn't come from, which is the negative, or the negation. And what he's negating is saying the world did not come from the Big Bang, the force, or a creator God. Okay, that's what the sentence or statement is alluding to. He's saying that the world, those things are not the things that create the world that you experience today. What he is saying is that where the world did come from is your karma, right? And so then we're going to go into what is karma. Can you say Deni, Sempa Dang, Deje, Sempa, Yiki Le, Yin No. Again, Deni, Sempa Dang, Deje, Sempa, Yiki Le, Yin No. So Deni is that, and that is referring to karma. Sempa is the movement of the mind. We've seen this before for those of you that have been in past courses. Dang is and. Deje is what it does or motivates. Sempa again, same movement of the mind. Yihile is the karma of the mind. And Yino, which is. So the statement is, karma is the movement of the mind and what follows. So this is the second line of the chapter. I'll let you catch up and write your notes.
How to understand this versus karma
Mm-hmm.
is what you did from the past.
We'll unpack it. Okay, so Sempa, movement of the mind, we're going to unpack this further, but just so that you know, it's really the function that motivates physical and verbal karma, which we'll go into. So what I'm going to show you here is I'm showing you the two lines here because now Master Vasubandhu is setting up his presentation of karma. He's saying karmic deeds cause a multitude of worlds. Karma is a movement of the mind and what follows. And what he's saying is that all the worlds are caused by karma, and karma is a movement of the mind, and it's what inspires your speech and your body. And therefore, your movement of the mind is what we call mental karma. Okay? I'm going to say that one more time. What he's saying here is that the world is created by your karma, and that karma is the movement of the mind, and it's what inspires your speech and your body, and that the movement of the mind is your mental karma. Okay? Yes?
Does that mean that we all live in our own individual world, or multiple people's mental karma influencing one world? I can rephrase the question.
Yeah, no, I understand what you mean. Let me unpack this and see if you still have that question.
Okay, sure.
It's kind of like a trick question, what you're asking. Okay, let's see, and then see if you still have it.
Could you repeat it one more time?
Right. So, what he's saying, the first sentence is that the world is caused by karma, or actually it's your karma, but the world is caused by karma, and karma is the movement of the mind, and it's what inspires your body and your speech. what you physically do and what you say. And the movement of the mind is what is mental karma. So I'll go into it more so that you see. It's that when the mind moves, okay, every time your mind moves, you're creating a mental karma, is what we're going to call it, okay? And those mental karmas is what motivates or inspires you to say what you say and do what you do. So the driver of your sempa, right? The driver of your mind is your sempa. The driver of your mind is the movement of the mind. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm sorry.
Mm.
But before you said that when they say mind, right?
I'm sorry?
Well, at the beginning you mentioned that when they say mind,
Yes.
it refers to
Yes.
feeling.
Yes.
So in this case,
Right.
it's very...
Yes, of course. Feelings actually is considered a mental function of the mind. So feelings are a part of mind.
So I may not even think anything, but I...
Sure. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, when I'm jealous, I feel jealous, and that is a mental function, and that is real. And I will act on it or not, but I will feel it. Or when I'm angry, right? That's I feel it, and that is a mental function, and that's valid for sure. Yeah. So in the Tibetan tradition, mind does encompass feeling, which is nice because in science, right, what we see mostly today, it's two separate. I mean, I don't even know. It's like it's weird. Anyway, I have a teacher that gets really into neuroscience and he's very upset by it. But nonetheless, he's like, the mind is not your brain. I'm like, I know, I get it. But it's not the same. Yeah. I mean, I'm sorry. It is together. Your mind and your emotions are in one category. Okay. Does that make sense? Okay. So what he's saying then is that if it's your mental karma that drives what you say and what you do. So there are 3 karmas that you have, and they call them 3 doorways. That's another way to put it. And so the 3 doorways or the 3 karmas you have are what? What do you think?
Body, speech, mind.
Right, body, speech, mind. Those are the 3 karmas. Those are the only 3 ways that he's saying you can express yourselves. Body, speech, mind. Right? And so every time your mind moves, you are creating a mental karma, and that mental karma is creating some sort of physical karma or some sort of speech karma. The movement of the mind in scripture basically says that it's every time your mind moves from one object to another. And that happens in milliseconds. It's not like huge chunks, right? It's milliseconds. So every millisecond, your mind is creating and planting these little mental karmas. And some of them have more juju than others, right? And they can push and be able to have you say something or do something, good or bad, or virtuous or non-virtuous. I'm trying to not use good or bad here. It's not like that. But that's what that looks like. So imagine how many micro mental karmas that you're creating all the time. So it's not just the most obvious ones that you create, like the most graphic ones. There are subtle ones, which is why we meditate, so that you can start to understand the subtleties of your mind and how it behaves and what it does and how it tricks you. To be like, oh, you're not thinking that. No, actually you are. You've been thinking about it. You just, right? And that's why it's so important that's why meditation is so important, because therefore what he's saying is it's your mind that creates your world, right? It's your mind that creates the world that you live in. It's the mind that you create the world that you experience. That nothing is coming at you, but in fact that you are creating the things that you see and experience today. Yes, I didn't even know you were there. Shift over.
And creating the world as in like the lens you perceive it, or like literally creating the molecules and whatever kind of way?
Both. I know that sounds really crazy. And I'm not expecting you to buy into it today or tonight, by no means. It's something that will take time to contemplate. I know, but it's true. It's like you have, and we'll go into it more even in this course, but you have the karma to be able to experience it's not just a perspective, it's that the experience you have today. Like today I came in and was it Zoe? Where's Zoe? Zoe said, "Oh, you got your hair cut." And I said, "Yeah." She goes, "You look so much younger." Right?
Did I say that?
Yeah, you did.
I did not mean to say
Oh no, it's great. No, it's lovely. What you said? What do you say? Younger? You said you look like you're in 20s, and I was like, "That's amazing. That's younger for me." I'm like, "Oh my god, I look like I'm in 20s." I like
trendy.
Oh, trendy. Oh, I heard 20s. Okay, so that's a great example. My karma was like I heard 20s, and I'm like, "Oh, great. I look young." I'm like kidding. But that perspective that she had when she saw me, that's her karma for her to see me that way. It's not just a perspective. It's and we're going to go into how those karmas are created, but the way, because someone else can come into the room and look at my cut and be like, "What is that? She looks like she's like, it seems like an outdated haircut," or and so it's much more profound than just a perspective. It's what he's trying to get to is having you understand that the world, so the cool thing about Buddhism is that nothing is static. Everything is fluid. Everything is fluid. You're fluid. Well, everything but a few things, but for the most part, for where we are now, let's just say 99.9% of everything is fluid, okay? Which means that everything is a blank screen, which means that based on what he is saying, his argument, he's saying that your mind can create the world in which you decide to live in. It means that it gives you the power to drastically change the life that you want to have. Now, the things that you want to have now, you're not going to have them, and we'll talk about why. But it means that you have the power to choose what you can have and live in the future. Okay? So we're going to break this down over the next, 9 more weeks. But this is where we're starting. This is his argument in his presentation. And he's basically, so the big takeaway here is, okay, and you have to sit with this and see, where does this make sense to you? Where does it not? How can I test this, But the big difference here is that no one created the world for you. Like you're not just some sort of victim of the circumstances that you're in, or you're not some bystander just experiencing things that you didn't have a choice of. And some of the things that you're doing in your life, you may not realize that you actually had certain decisions, and there are some things that you can see at some point in your immediate kind of future and immediate past. But what he's ultimately saying is that all the things that you experience, that you see, that you feel, that the draft that we're feeling slightly that's coming in, or for those of you who have the karma to have that feeling, that is your karma that you have, that is manifested and created those perceptions and feelings and states. Okay? I know, it's going to be, I knew it. I was going through this and I'm like, oh man, it's going to be so intense. Yes.
I haven't thought too much about this, but I'm stuck on it, and so I just thought I'd express it. So you said mental karma creates what we say and do.
Yes.
So does that mean there are like very subtle? Well, my question is the voluntary, involuntary thing. So like something involuntary, like certain bodily functions, like breathing.
Yes.
Is there just a subtle mental karma that's creating those?
Sure. Yeah. Of course. Because when you die, your karma runs out. There's your karma of being able to.
But how do you interpret what that karma is?
Where that comes from?
Yeah.
Through meditation. I mean, there are scriptures. There's books. Geshe Michael wrote a book at one point called what was it? Karma with Love. Karma of Love. That's what it was called. I remember the cover, not the title, of course. Anyway, where he actually went through and had a list of a bunch of different types of karma, like what karmic seeds and the karmic correlations. We'll talk about some karmic correlations in this course. We won't go through all of them. There's a lot, I know. Everyone's going to be like, why is my mom such a pain in the ass? I'm like, let me go through the dictionary. So we'll go through some of them. But yes, yeah. I mean, breathing that's a nice one. For sure, there is a karmic correlation to that. I mean, having life and the duration of your life has to do with that. Yes.
I just want to throw out an example. For me, it's your karma is the movement of your mind and what you do with it. And I like to think of it as how we react to it. So if I spend an entire night looking at cat videos, because I think cats are adorable, and then the next day I have an unruly customer I have to deal with, it's a heck of a lot easier. If I spend the whole night watching The Walking Dead or reading the news, the next day, what follows is I'm less patient.
Mm-hmm.
So it's what you're putting into your mind and what you're doing with your mind that is causing you to act in the real world. And those actions are what we sort of normally think of as karma, what I did with it.
Right.
But really, it's what you're doing with your mind.
It starts there first.
All the time.
Totally.
It's
Yeah.
creating the causes for joy or for happiness.
Totally. And and karma's weighted, which we'll get into as well, right? It's not like there's different weights and distributions of it. And we'll talk about what that looks like and seeds and all that stuff. But Thomas, you're bringing up a great point, because what he's saying and what Master Vasubandhu is saying is that your actions, all the things that you do, it always starts with the movement of the mind first. It does never not start there first, is what he's saying. So if that's the case, then, and there are times where you might think something, but you don't do something. Does it mean that you didn't plant a mental karmic seed? No, of course you did. There is a mental, it will be different, right? The charge will be different, but there is still a karmic seed that happens. Hence why it's important when you talk to meditators and why you meditate and why you practice the virtues and the 6 perfections is to keep your mind as unobstructed. Pure is one word, but that sounds a little like, it's to keep your mind pure. It's to keep your mind unafflicted. That's why afflictions are so, right? I mean, there are people who have afflictions that literally you can see physically manifest in them, but they won't say it. Like so many times I will meet with people and I'm like, how are you doing? They're like, fine. Their mouth says fine, right? I see it, I hear it, but what in their mind, but I feel something different in their mind. It's like, I'm not fine. I just had a really, really bad day, or my father is dying, or, there's all this other stuff going. So it's not just what your actions are, there's also what is in the space of your mind that is a part of this equation.
Okay. I'm going to just move forward so that we're not here too late. In the basic divisions of karma, there's 2 kinds of karma. There's called motivating karma and motivated karma. Motivating karma is your mental thoughts. It's your mental karma. And motivated karma, the things that are motivated by your karma, are your actions. So it's speech and body. I know, that's not karma. And I will just note, for those of you who are doing homework, this is kind of a trick question. It's going to ask you the 2 most basic types of karma in the Tibetan. So the 2 most basic types of karma is your mental karma, and that's the second or the third line, Sempa Yukile. And then the other question is the second part of it is what it motivates, and it's Sempa Deje. So it's going to ask you 2 most basic types of karma. The first one is the mind, your mental karma. Two most basic types of karma. One is mental karma, which is sempa. And then it's the second one is what it motivates, which is your action. Which is sempa. It's backwards. Okay, moving on. So two kinds of verbal and physical karma for motivated karma. There are two kinds of verbal and physical karma for your motivated karma. And this also, by the way, is just in this school. Number one, two kinds of mental, verbal and physical. Verbal and physical. Motivated. That's right. Two kinds of motivated karma. The one is called, can we say, nampar riche? And that's communicating. It's the communicating the intent of the doer. So basically what they're saying is that in the motivated karma category, there are what's called the nampar riche, which means it's communicating through some sort of form or shape or color or the intent of the doer. So the example that they have is, for instance, you walk into a church and you walk into a church and you see someone kneeling and like this, right? And just by observing, there is some sort of intent by observing
the form and the shape of what they're holding. Does that make sense? Yeah? Okay. So there's an intent just by the form and shape. So the communicating is about the intent of what the doer is doing or not doing based on just observing the form. Right? Or if someone was sitting next to me and I went over and it came out right, just by watching, it's like there's some sort of intent that I'm trying to hide something from you. Okay? Yeah, by body language, right? But the way that they say it is by they call it form or the outline of your shape, but it is
contempt. In that example that your intent was to do that, or it's my intent observing you?
You're gathering, you're deducing some sort of intent by my body language.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It's so funny. I never even thought of that word, which is so odd because I'm like in the scripture space and I'm like, it's the outline and the shape of your form. And you're like, body language? I'm like, yes. This is true. Okay. The second one, can we say nampar riche? Mayimpa. And so nampar riche means communicating, and mayimpa is the negation. So it's the non-communicating form. Okay, so Michael, you're gonna really like this. In this school only, other schools do not believe this, but in this school only, they believe that when you're doing an extraordinary deed, negative or virtuous or non-virtuous, like for instance, the example they give is taking an oath or taking vows, that when that happens, there's actually like an aura that's created outside of you. Okay, it's not something that they actually say that it's physical matter, but you don't put on weight from it. You don't add on weight, but it's like a cloak that's on you, and it's an energetic kind of field that encompasses you. And the best way that I can interpret that would be like an aura. Okay, they say that when you'll keep it until you die. And you can also give it back. So for instance, if you have vows and you decide to give your vows back, at that point the aura will dissipate. They also say that, what else do they say? it's not something that everyone can see. But there are beings that can see it. Yes.
Yeah.
I didn't think there would be aura questions, but yes.
So then how does this aura self-existently exist?
It doesn't.
She's saying that only some people can. So that my question
It doesn't.
is about. So for some people, vows are mental karma because they're just promises you're keeping.
No,
And for some,
no, they're saying that when you actually have a vow in this tradition, it
but
manifests.
I don't have the karma to see that. For
Yes,
someone
that's
else,
correct.
but someone
That's
else
right.
who might.
That's right. Yeah.
So it is
Yeah.
still empty.
Yeah.
You said extraordinary.
Yeah,
So-
so
so-
it's not like you're not gonna get, like, for instance, I'm not gonna get an aura if someone says, hey, if I promise somebody something that's petty or not
Right,
that.
I promise I'll meet you tomorrow at 5 o'clock.
Right. But if I took, let's say, like one of the examples is like, for instance, if I took a vow, like an oath that I'm going to join the army and do whatever it takes, and I'll kill whomever I need to kill to protect the country, right? And that there is a vow to kill, for instance, right? That there is an aura that's created, which would be different than me sitting and feeling a little like pinch and slapping my shoulder and noticing that I killed
Right.
a bug.
But
Does that make sense?
If you did do some horrendous act,
Mm.
like you went and killed somebody,
Yes.
that creates an order.
No, it's the vow of which that creates the aura.
Oh, it's not.
Yeah, it's not the actual action itself. So once you take that, now when you give those vows back, that aura can dissipate. So let's say you signed up for the army, you decide that you're going to make a vow to kill people, and then you decide that when you're done with your term, you're giving it back, that vow then dissipates. But
I'm
it's
sorry,
the
aura is just about vows?
yes.
Oh, it's just about
It's
vows.
it's
Oh.
in regards to vows, is what the scripture says. It's based around like the vow, like the oath or the vow of taking something or agreeing to something.
So other activities in your life don't create
No.
this. Oh,
No, not everyone has them.
right,
Like unless you have vows, but yeah.
right, okay.
Yeah.
So it's an internal vow. Like, for example, if I were drafted into the army, I would not be into that, right? Like, I'm not feeling that, but maybe I have to do that, and I'm like, fuck no, I'm not killing anybody, but like for some weird reason I'm here. Do I have that aura?
If you take the vows, you would have that aura.
But my mouth said the words, but my being
Your heart?
does not.
It's like walking down the aisle and being like, I do, but I don't, but I do. I don't know, actually. I mean, we don't go that deep into this because in our lineage we don't believe it, and it's in the Abhidharma lineage.
Or not, you're planting bad seeds because you're going against what you're
Sure, I mean that's like a whole different thing, but this is in the Abhidharma school only that applies. That happens to be something that applies. It's not, yeah, just so we're clear, it's not in all. And other schools don't believe this. This is the only school that believes this. They
Abhidharma Kosha, and they believe it as scripture. It's not at school. Abhidharma school, medieval school. No, sutra school. Sutra school. Yeah, it's only applicable in school. I know, people get kind of excited over it. In this school it is, yes. It doesn't mean it's not. I thought you were saying that because it's off in school. No, I'm sorry. When I met this one, the school that was set that up.
It's very exciting to actually
Tell me.
So, if you take on vow, that your motivation isn't clear to the vow,
Yeah.
it doesn't take root.
Oh, that's
The
it.
form of the vow doesn't take root.
Yeah.
Mind as a
I mean, that's the case how it is in vows in general. It's like in the practice. So I guess it would apply. I don't know that for sure. So if that's not sort
He talks about it in taking refuge.
Yeah.
So refuge vows in Abhidharma school.
Oh, yeah.
They don't take the root.
They don't stick.
Yeah, they don't. It's like there's something right about taking out the robes.
Yeah.
That you can actually live in the person.
Some people will see the color on you, and the aura has different color.
Yeah. That's the Abhidharma. Okay. In the so we can, if we go deeper into it, just because you guys are so into it, here we go. There are 5 qualities. Yes.
What was listed as
I'm sorry.
That's so aura is the not harming.
Okay, so within the non-communication space of karma that we're in the aura, so there are 5 qualities of the aura, is what we're calling it. That is not scripture, by the way. And the scripture does not say aura, but that's the word we're using. So just don't go out there and be like, my teacher was teaching about aura today. It's really technically important. You get what we're so talking about verbal. Right now, we're going to go into 5 qualities of aura. Before, yes, aura is from verbal and physical. Okay, we're almost done. 1. It says it's senyepa, and it means that during times of distraction, which means even when you aren't thinking about it, it's still there. You will have this aura even when you're not thinking about your values.
Okay. Second one, when the mind is subtle, sem mempa. Sem means mind, and mempa is the negation. It actually translates to like stopped mind or no mind, but it's not really that the mind stops. The mind never stops, as I had mentioned earlier. It is there forever. But it's saying that even when your mind is almost shut down, meaning even when it's most subtle, at its most subtle state, and basically saying in deep meditation, not when you're sleeping, like when you're in deep meditation, it's always there. Okay?
Sleep too, though, right?
Yeah. I mean, my mind is not subtle when I'm sleeping. I don't know about you, but I have that sleep app, and it's like, anyway, the chart is. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? There's like a percentage. Yeah, and that's like a percentage. And I have a friend of mine that does competitions. Like, I'm going to compete to be a higher percentage than you. Like,
sounds counterproductive.
Right? Totally. Virtue or not. So it's saying that ge dang ni ge. Ge dang ni ge. It has an ethical component. It's either virtuous or non-virtuous. In this school, they're saying that there are things that are morally neutral. However, to get the cloak, to get the aura, it's usually something that is clearly virtuous or not virtuous. Like you're not getting a neutral aura, is what I'm saying. Okay, number 4. It continues on. Jengel. Actually, not Shinbel. Meaning that it continues on in a stream that follows you through time and place. You can't get rid of it. It's always with you. And the last one is takes the great elements as its cause. Which means it is composed of subtle physical matter having all types of elements as its cause. It's basically just saying that this school believes that aura has physical matter. And we've talked about the 4 different types of components, right? Earth, water, wind, fire. So it's saying that it's some sort of combination of those 4 that creates this aura. Then Master Vasubandhu ends with ... they say. And it's his code saying, this is what they said. This is not really my practice. He's actually a Mahayana practitioner. But he just wanted to hint to let you know that this is something he's writing on behalf, commentary on behalf of the school that he's not a practitioner of. Okay, very good.
How do you differentiate between mental matter and physical matter? In the true.
Oh, in the last
like
course.
all the existing things.
Yes.
Wouldn't they be different?
No, but I think in this school, it's actually all matter.
Okay.
Yeah. because all energies for them, it has matter.
But then, if like produces like, then how could you say physical matter produces mental matter? Because the proof we use where then if you were to just put the 4 elements together every time you would, you get a mind. But you don't.
That's true.
But it's creating an aura, which isn't part of the mind.
Yes, it's the Abhidharma school. Yeah. Yes.
One quick question. So Mahayana does not believe in the aura and the vows and the whole thing. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. So it doesn't really make sense to me. That's important to know.
Yeah. Well, good. I'm glad. That's correct. Yes.
I'm surprised that it's like, are there other things like this where the aura comes with other schools? I'm just so surprised that it's all about vows doing this.
Right, the aura and the energy. Yeah, I mean, I've never heard of it in other schools of having some sort of energetic field. There are other schools that talk about energy in different ways, but not in terms of matter that you actually see or that you get. Now, when you take vows, and we'll probably talk about it in Bodhisattva vows. We have a class on going through all the vows. But there is a way of how you can actually accept vows, which was something that we were just talking about a minute ago. But I don't know of other schools having an aura. I mean, from what I know and what the scriptures are saying, that this is the only school that has this specific type of way of doing it and system of doing it. Yeah. Cool. All right. Thanks for hanging in there. Here we go.
Sashi Kuki Jushin Meto Chum Rira Lingshi Indegim Pari Sange Shingu Mite Ruargi Roku Nanda Shimla Juparsho Yam Ratnamangalakam Niyatayami Gewadi Keroku Simam Yeshe Soksokshing Simam Yeshe Lenjungwe Dampa Sugil Tupasho.
Just quick close. Sit in a meditative pose. And let's just quickly close with a dedication. Take a moment and just absorb and feel what you learned tonight. See if it affected your body or your mind or your speech, even your inner speech in any way. Commend yourself for taking the effort to come to class. Stick with it and be engaged and open. Really feel acknowledged and accomplished and pat yourself on the back, giving yourself credit. And then think about one person out there in the world that you know who's having a hard time. Maybe it's someone you love dearly, or maybe it's not. But someone you know is in pain. And take your efforts that you spent tonight and what you learned and just dedicate that to this person, wishing for him, her, them to be free from suffering, to find peace, contentment, joy, and happiness. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.